Hey everybody, Greg Rice from Nexus Property Management, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Every time you see my face, I have shit news to deliver to you, and unfortunately I have more shit news to deliver. It is this week's, and you'll probably be seeing this video post facto, this week's Senate hearing list. And there's a myriad of stuff, but the one that grinds my gears is Senate Bill 512. This is by our friends Mac, Ewer, Gu, Bell, Acosta, Zurier, and Basilian. Wow, that is surprising. But it creates the division of civil representation, more bureaucracy, more red tape, more money, within the Department of Housing, and requires civil representation within the Department of Housing, and requires civil representation by a designated legal organization to provide legal representation to all tenants who qualify in eviction proceedings. So essentially, the tenants get free lawyers. What do the landlords get? Did you hear that? There's literally crickets outside my studio right now. That is beautiful. That's what we get. Nothing. We get a whole bunch of nothing too. But the tenants, they get it all. I gotta pay Steve Conti. I gotta pay Michael Crane. I gotta pay those fat cats to come in and represent me. But the tenant doesn't have to pay rent, doesn't have to pay the late fees, doesn't have to pay the attorney. So all they have to do is exist. All they have to do is exist. And here are the services. Oh, you didn't pay? Don't worry about it. We got you covered. We got Jack here. Jack's going to help you out. Jack's going to get you 2 months. Jack's going to get you an appeal. Jack's going to buy you more time. Jack's going to just let Jack, we'll let Jack tell you what Jack's going to do. He's going to do it for you. That's what this type of legislation is. And it's, again, more cost to the taxpayer, more cost to the homeowner, right? We would be funding these types of programs and services. And there's thousands and thousands of evictions all throughout the state on a yearly basis. And everyone would have to wait for Jack to show up. The Jack of all trades, the Jack of all evictions, we'll call him. We got to wait for Jack to show up to each and every one of those hearings that, quote unquote, qualify. So not only is it going to cost a whole bunch of money, it's going to add more red tape, more bureaucracy to what is already a bloated government, and we're seeing that on a national level. But now we got to wait. We got to wait for that person to show up. Wait for them to sign off on what they believe is a reasonable deal for your property and your wallet. And maybe they're not available. Maybe there's, just like the inspectors, maybe there's 10 lawyers handling 1,000 cases. It would be the same type of shit show, because that's what it is, trying to get an inspector to show up to swab your house for lead. It would be the same thing with this. And again, why are we incentivizing bad behavior? And I get it. Greg, you're too rigid. Greg, you don't understand people fall on hard times. I'm not talking about those people. Those people deserve more, because they're the ones that are trying hard. They're the ones communicating with the landlord. They're the ones trying to make it right, trying to do what they can to get that dollar across the finish line. they're trying. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that are going to hear about this and see about this and know about this and just say, yeah, I got to pay my rent. I got Jack. Jack's going to come in. Right? So they already operate in a fashion of, and the Teflon tenants we call them. They come in and they know if they just pay first in security, they get at least 3 months before anything's going to happen where they have to move. And I just saw this in court a couple of weeks ago. I was there for the restraining order, and I was just watching. But my point here, and back to, what's going on with this type of bill, is it's going to clog up an already clogged system. And it's incentivizing people to ride the system's wave. That was my point. To ride the wave of the government's safety net. And government safety nets were implemented, I believe, as, I think one of the first forms of a social service was in the 20s, I believe, or the 30s. We had so much money. The roaring 20s, we had to figure out ways to spend it, before the Depression, of course. They were meant to get people across the finish line who were very close. That's what social services and government subsidies were for. But now it's the complete opposite. Social services and government subsidies are a way of life for many people. And they are brought up to live that way and to think that way. And I learned that very young. I learned that when I had just started at Nexus. I was at Woonsocket Housing Authority, and I was sitting with one of the caseworkers. Her name was Gloria Wilson, and she's since retired now. She was an amazing woman. And I'm sitting there signing a lease or whatever, and I was just picking her brain, like, what do you think of, HUD? What do you think of this program? What do you think of the state of society? Like, just trying to get this woman's experience. And she goes, I've been doing this for decades, Greg, and the system is absolutely broke. It's absolutely shot, and people are taking advantage of it each and every day. And that was maybe 10 years ago almost. And I'll never forget that. And I was just starting in my career, so it didn't mean much. But now I've seen it. Now I understand that there are tenants that freeload and live off the system and live off landlords so they can get to their next stop. And they can get their next flat screen TV. I don't know what it is with the flat screen TVs. Every time I go by properties, there's boxes of flat screen TVs outside. I don't know what it is. I buy a TV like maybe every 5 or 10 years. Like, I don't even watch TV. But my point is that it's the opposite now with social services. So a bill like this is just adding another layer for somebody not to have to care, not to have to work that second job, not to have to make the hard decisions of, what do I pay for it today? It just adds another layer of, all the while, there's typically people that do really need that. That's just going to help them, right? They've been working all day. They're working 80 hours. And yeah, they don't know what the hell's going on. They need a lawyer. I get that. But the overwhelming majority of people these days are not that way. They are looking at government as a means to an end, as their source of income, as their source of support. Government is meant to be a supplement, an auxiliary, tertiary party that is there as and when and if needed. You are not meant to be reliant on the government. And the slew of bills that we're dealing with are all proposed and throwing money, agencies, processes at tenants in this case. What do we expect of society if we continually spoon feed? And almost now it's like we're pre-chewing, we're chewing food, putting it on a spoon. Whee! Open wide, here's your free lawyer. Here's your move-out assistance. Here's your expungement of eviction. We don't have to charge you an application fee. You don't have to check your credit report. Right? I could keep spoon feeding you all day. All day long. And how do I get spoon fed? I don't. I get slapped. I get hit with hire this, more of that, do this, don't do that. All day long. What it's like. Because I'm getting hit with the wooden spoon. Or I'm getting soap in my mouth. That's what it's like to be a landlord in 2025. Would you like to buy a property? Would you like to do it? No. You want to throw it in an index fund. You want to buy crypto. You want to put it in a REIT. You don't want to deal with this. You don't want to be me. Why would you want to be me? Look at what I got to do. Look at the time I have to spend on top of the time I got to spend just to educate all the other landlords and even politicians at some time. They don't even know what the hell's, they don't, a lot of them are renters. They're not even landlords. A lot of them don't know what the hell just cause eviction means. The amount of shit that gets thrown at us, it's never ending. But I love it because I am one of the most resilient people that you will ever know. I live this. This is not a job. This is not a career. This is a passion. And it always will be. And it always has been. So I welcome this. It's quite all right. And who knows? I may just run for governor one day. So I could veto something like that. But essentially, that's not the solution today. The solution today is active engagement and awareness. And just because you own a property, just because you're collecting rent, just because you have your equity and your appreciation, doesn't mean that you should be asleep at the wheel. But maybe you don't care, and that's fine too. But there's plenty of us out here who do care and will continue to care. So if you have any questions about anything I just said, or you want to tell me to go F myself, either way, it's welcomed. I'm a big First Amendment guy, and I think that we all have and should have the right to say whatever we want, no matter how offensive it is. Just like our friend put a landlord in the dirt or whatever, landfill, whatever he said. As much as that's disgusting and offensive, he has a right to say that. That's all I got to say. Greg Rice here, not at Nexus in the Bucket, home office. Your property and your motivation managed.